Alright, so now that we have learned how to create user-defined functions and insert those functions directly into our worksheets, now let's try to create a function to produce a value and then use that value within another sub-procedure. As I mentioned before, creating user-defined functions is very useful, especially if that function doesn't exist inside of Excel. So for this example, we will be creating a function that converts miles to feet and then use that function within another sub-procedure. So within our writing VBA code module, let's add another function. So we can type in function, and I'm going to name this converter. And remember, with functions, we need to specify the arguments required for this function. So let's put open parentheses, and for this argument, I'm just going to name it x. Then close parentheses, and then let's declare the value that this function will produce as long. Because what this function is going to do is take the amount of miles that the user inputs and convert it into feet. So this number could potentially be a large value. So instead of using integer that only goes to a value from negative 32,000 to positive 32,000, we will use long because the value that this function could produce might be larger than that 32,000 mark. So to create our converter, we can type in converter, which is our function name, equals our argument x, which is going to be the amount of miles that the user inputs, times 5,280, which is how many feet are in 1 mile. And that's it for our function. So now let's create a sub-procedure that prompts the user with an input box to enter the amount of miles that they want to convert, and then display a message box saying blank miles is equal to blank feet. So down below, let's insert sub, and let's call it total feet. And we will be using a variable for this example, so let's declare our variable. So we need to type in dim. Our variable name could be mi, which is short for miles, and we can just declare it as an integer. Now we need to make our variable equal to something. So we can put mi equals, and this is where we are going to prompt the user with the input box. So we can type in input box, open parentheses, open quotes, and have it say enter miles, close quotes, close parentheses, and then have our message box say blank miles is equal to blank feet. So we can use our variable mi, which is going to be the amount of miles that the user inputs, ampersand sign, open quotes, space, miles is equal to, close quotes, ampersand sign, and this is where we will specify the amount of feet that's in how many miles of the user's input. So this is where we need to use our function to convert the amount of miles into feet. So we can type in our function name, which is converter, open parentheses, and our converter function only needs one argument. So we can use our variable mi, close parentheses, and what that's going to do is take the amount of miles that the user inputs and then take that value up to our converter function and use it as the x argument. So our function will read converter equals mi times 5,280. So back in our message box, we can type in ampersand sign, open quotes, space, feet, close quotes. So let's run this sub and see what we get. We get our input box that says enter miles. So if I put 10 and click OK, we get a message box saying 10 miles, and 10 is our mi variable. So 10 miles is equal to 52,800 feet. So in our message box, it used our converter function, plugged in the miles for x, and multiplied it by 5,280. So that's an example of how you can use functions inside of your sub procedures. And this is very helpful because we can reuse our function anywhere at any time. So if we had multiple sub procedures that converted miles to feet, we wouldn't want to have to rewrite that converter equation in every sub. Instead, we can just write our function once and then get that value to use in our different sub procedures. And also, this helps with the organization of our code.